So I just had the flu. I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking. Thank you for caring. But if you notice a little edit here throughout the video, once in a while, just assume that I am fighting for my life against a cough, because that's probably what's happening. Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I'm an artist and a film enthusiast. I have drawn some art and I would like to enthuse about some film. That could not be more true than it is today, because we are talking about Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things. This is one of the greatest movies I've seen in a really long time. I just, to get ahead of it, I'm not going to spoil too much. So that's one thing. If you haven't seen the movie, this is going to be a non-spoiler review because I think it's worth seeing on its own. This is also going to be a very quick review because I have nothing but positive things to say about it. There's literally not a negative thing. I mean, there's one, but there's pretty much not a negative thing to say about this movie. So let's jump into it. My favorite thing about this movie is the way that it's shot, which I'm hearing it out loud. Sounds like the most pretentious thing a human being could say. But it's true. It really is. This is shot with such a unique kind of quirkiness and weirdness. His other movies, I've seen The Lobster. I haven't seen any of the other ones. Now I would like to. But The Lobster is shot very straight, very plain. And it's supposed to. It's supposed to feel like all of this is normal. I feel like this is the opposite of The Lobster in that way. This is shot in such a way that you're supposed to see the beauty and the wonder and the whimsical weirdness of this world that these characters are seeing. And that makes the contrast between that and the darkness that they end up seeing way stronger and way more impactful. I feel like this did such a good job making me immediately immersed into the film, just with weird fisheye lenses that were used for so many different things. It was incredible. And the methodical moving around the houses and this beautifully immaculate sets. I think there's a lot of really kind of pretentious art housey movies that do all these crazy weird shots or have these abnormal shots and different angles, and they're interesting and cool to look at, but then at some point you start to wonder if there's really any substance. This is the exact opposite. I feel like there are so many brilliant creative shots throughout this movie, and the more I think about it, the more they mean, the more they were used there for a purpose, not just to look different than other movies, but to be something special and to communicate something, which is really, at the end of the day, what this is for. I touched on it a second ago, but the sets, the production design of this movie is some of the best I've ever seen. Before I saw this movie, I really thought, I could really see Barbie winning production design for the Oscars because they made such a really interesting and beautiful set and world that felt like plastic. They did a great job with that, and this is not to take away from that. However, assuming this was nominated, because I didn't look that closely into it, if this does not win, that's absurd. Every location that we visit in this movie is breathtaking, and it feels surreal and yet somehow very grounded and almost like a storybook, but also something really dark. It's such a comprehensive, impressive society that this world creates that it almost becomes its own language, to the point where there are some times where they'll do a little visual gag or honestly several very well-written jokes that I hear or see, and then 2 or 3 beats later it hits me what that really was, because I was just so immersed that I accept everything that's coming at me on the screen. And then all of a sudden it hits me that no, that was weird, that was funny. And I love that feeling of something so clever that you're a couple of steps behind it. That does not happen very often, and I really am just so impressed with what this movie was able to accomplish with that. Not to mention, Emma Stone is so good in this. She plays such a brilliant... If you don't know anything about the movie, I'm not going to tell you, but the character that she plays is a very, very unique and very hard character to portray. It's something that we all feel like we might have an idea of what it would look like, but none of us have ever experienced, which is really impressive to me because she captured that perfectly and yet still made it her own. I also totally see why Mark Ruffalo was nominated. He's such a douchebag in this movie. He does a very good job of being this character that he's supposed to be, to the point that I forget that it's Mark Ruffalo and I start to really hate this guy in such a beautiful, delicious kind of way. I think that they nailed what they were going for with that. And that's kind of my overall thought of the movie. They just nailed exactly what they were going for at every moment. This thing feels like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 separate movies at times. It's tackling very different stories throughout the movie. It's a journey. A lot happens in this film. And yet I still feel like they did exactly what they wanted. It doesn't feel disjointed. It feels like it naturally segues into these things. So it's just taking you on this winding path. where I've seen so many movies that try to do the same thing and just end up feeling like we're doing oh no, we're doing this. Okay, no, we're over here doing this. And this isn't segmented like that. It feels natural. It feels like this is where the story was always going to go, and yet somehow I never predicted it. My only negative, and I hesitate so strongly to say that this even might be a negative, is that there is a lot of sexual stuff in this movie. For some people, that's a huge negative. For some people, that doesn't matter. And so I'm not taking a stand one way or the other. You can feel however you feel about that. Me personally, I thought that this was done in such a way that felt very clinical. It didn't feel pornographic in that way. It felt like it was necessary for the story and definitely like a part of what they were trying to do and show. It didn't feel like it was just trying to be scandalous for scandalous sake. I felt that this was important to the film, a very distinct part of what made this movie what it was and what it was trying to say. So it didn't bother me. I think that it makes sense in this. That being said, the level of sexual content in this movie, I would definitely say it pushes it. Like, it's a lot. There's a lot in this movie. And so if you're on the edge about that, I think that is something you should know going in. If you don't generally like that, I'm not sure that this one would be for you. On the other hand, I'm not generally into all of that either. That hits some weird stuff on my past that I've gotten over. So I don't really want to dive back into that. That being said, this didn't make me feel that way at all. That being said, I really appreciated this movie, and I appreciated that part of this movie. That element fit in the film. It was part of the story and it made sense. In the same way that last year or the year before, I don't remember, if you saw Babylon, that had a lot of sexual content, and that felt to me like it was vitally important to what they were trying to say and show in the film. I can think of many examples where that's not exactly true. But all that to say, I loved this movie. I thought it was insanely good. If I had seen it last year, it would be on my top 10 for last year. I don't know where. I'm not going to think about what I would try to boot out for that. Nobody cares. But I do love this movie, and I hope that it gets the appreciation that it deserves. I'm glad that it finally got a theatrical release near me. And if it's near you and you think that you might enjoy it, I highly recommend this movie. Poor Things is one of the best things I've seen, well, this year, but last year, and I could not recommend it highly enough. Thank you so much for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on movies, comics, TV shows, lobsters, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and comment down below what you'd like me to review next. Or do none of those things because I am not your dad.